Mama. I'm Courtney Cecil, proud mom of 2 boys and an organizational culture and behavior change executive. And I'm a believer in building a movement to help the burned out, overwhelmed working moms reclaim their control and free time so that they can confidently remain in the workforce without losing the sanity or themselves. Now, let's get started.
Hey y'all, I'm your host, Courtney Cecil, and welcome back to the Life Management System. And inside this episode, I am so excited to introduce and host my friend, Dana Malstaff, who is the founder of Boss Mom. So Dana, which if you cannot tell from my super Southern accent, is not supposed to be the same thing as Dana. I have the best of me is getting the best of me right now with my Southern accent. It is Dana, as in banana.
Yes.
But as it is, she's giving me the affirmative head nod. So Dana is the first mompreneur and single mom I've hosted. And I do such an intentional job trying to make sure that despite your walk of life, despite the type of job you have or your circumstances, that you're feeling yourself heard and seen here. And this has been a very, very obvious gap that has been in the back of my mind. I have been just kind of priming this relationship for a little bit to ask her to join because I knew and had my sights set on this one particular human as being the first both entrepreneur and single mom. So I'm excited to get both of you in one. Dana, I would love if you just take a couple minutes and tell the listeners, what are your life highlights and like, why is that such a core part of who you are and what you have built essentially your empire around?
Well, we're just getting started. So it's a small empire that's going to grow into a very large empire. Well, the funny part is I don't think when I was in corporate, if you would have told me you're going to start a business and it's going to be around the idea of being a mom, I mean, I would have probably said you're crazy. That would have made no sense to me. And so it's just funny how things happen because when I from a corporate standpoint, I was in a lot of startups. Like I always did small startup companies, probably because I like variety. So I enjoy wearing a lot of hats. So startups always appealed to me. And I was a late bloomer. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do or what I wanted to be. I was going to be a news anchor in college and then got out of college and was like putting out, reels to, like the actual film reels, not reels on social media, because social media really didn't exist when I graduated. And yeah, I was gonna have to live in like Lubbock, Texas, and go to like the squirrel convention and report on it. And that didn't sound fun. So I was like, what am I gonna do with my life? So yeah, I'm at corporate. I end up at like a director level. I'm making great money, working 14-hour days. We were trying to get pregnant and I wasn't working, right? And so it was a high stress job. He had a high stress job, but we had a lot of money. So we traveled and we did all these things and we knew we wanted kids. And it just happened in the company that I was at that there was a mentor that had come in because the company was growing so fast to help facilitate, growth and change management. And I started learning all these really interesting things about behavioral economics. It was really interesting. And this guy kind of took me under his wing and mentored me. He'd be like, you'd be a really good consultant. And so when the husband and wife who started the company got a divorce, basically everybody in the marketing side that he had hired was starting to get laid off. And I could see the writing on the wall. So it was like, I went to the guy who was doing all the basic laying off. And I was like, hey, give me 90 days. I'll train up my team. I'll train up a replacement for me. And then I'll go find another job. And I went to go find another job. And we were in Columbus, Ohio at the time. And I was like, I couldn't find anything I wanted. I couldn't find anything I cared enough about. And so my mentor was like, just become a consultant. Like we already have some contacts. You can go in, you can do leadership workshops and things like that. He's like, I'll help you get started. And I was like, okay, let's do it. Well, the last night of work, it was New Year's Eve. We all went out, we had tequila shots, and 6 weeks later, I was pregnant, right? So I think my body was like, hey, now that you're not going to be working so much, we should have a baby. And my now ex-husband would be like, that's way too much information to tell people. And I'm like, if you can't handle where babies came from, you are not going to be able to handle this world. Right? But so technically I became a boss and a mom like on the same day. And so now I have no job. I'm going to try and start my own consulting business. And for those listening, I'm air quoting. And I was pregnant, which I've never done before. So I'm a smart person in corporate. I have no idea what I'm doing, being a woman having a baby. You're tired, you're exhausted, you're all those things. hormonal, all the things. And I had no idea where my value was anymore because I knew exactly how much I was valued at monetarily in corporate. And so I had my son and I cried a ton because I wanted him to nap so I could work on my business, which made me feel infinitely guilty. I technically was on maternity leave in the sense that I could do whatever I wanted with my time, but I felt massively guilty because I didn't know what to do with my time that was appropriate. And I knew I wasn't built to be a stay-at-home mom. But I also knew I didn't want to go back to some corporate situation. I wanted to be able to choose when I like the times when my son was actually enjoyable and we had a lot of fun was always the time I would have been at work. So I was like, okay, I have to figure out a way to be with my kid, but also all the driven parts of me that wants to build things, how to do that. And I basically, when he was 5 months old, I was in a coffee shop sitting there trying to do some work, probably something that was not really helpful at all to me actually making money, but felt like it was important at the time. And I just saw a baby and a mom and a grandma, and they were all hanging out. And I just started to cry. And I called my mom. We were in Columbus, Ohio at the time. And I called my mom back in California in San Diego. And I was just like, oh my God, I want to come home and like be close to family. And I called my husband at the time and I was like, can we move to San Diego? And it was like 17 degrees below zero in the middle of the winter. And he's like, we will sell our house and quit my job tomorrow. When are we leaving? Right. And he worked for a bank. So he just transferred over to California. And like 6 weeks later, we were in California and I was
It
with,
happened that fast.
oh, well, yeah, like he was very motivated to go to somewhere warm, I think. Yeah, so we moved here in San Diego and this is where the entrepreneur part happened because before I was doing like thinking consulting, like going in, work with the Red Cross to do, leadership consulting and workshops and stuff. When I got here in San Diego, I started to go to these meetups and then all of a sudden there were all these other moms in these meetups doing business stuff. They were like writing books and having podcasts and things. And I was like, what is this podcast thing you're talking about? And we're talking 12 years ago, so this was it was still relatively new. Like Facebook, you couldn't even go live on Facebook at the time, like there was no TikTok yet. Like none of those things
12 years
existed.
ago was like essentially right when Instagram itself was coming out.
No, Instagram had been around, but it was only pictures. There's no videos, and Snapchat was like the cool thing for adults. So that's how long it was.
Yeah.
It wasn't even like the kid thing that wasn't cool for adults. And so basically I went to an event with a friend that gave me a free ticket. It was Hal Elrod's event, who wrote The Miracle Morning. And I went, and he's now a good friend. He's amazing. I've been on a stage a couple times since then. I went there. I was like, I'm going to get on that stage. And I was like, good. And so I've done it twice. And but basically I got hooked up with a group of people that I liked. His name was Azul Turonis. He helped you write books. We started a mastermind of just getting together and talking. And he said, and at this time I still didn't know what I was doing. I still wasn't making any money. I basically was at home with my son trying to figure out how to make money. And he's like, we should, if anybody wants to write a book. And I was like, I've always wanted to write a book. So I was going to write a marketing book. And it was going to be called like Expand Your Reach, because that's what I was calling the business at the time. And I was helping people with like social, like taking their book and turning them into social media content and a bunch of random things. And when we sat down, I ended up writing Boss Mom. I ended up wanting to talk about like how guilty I felt that my kid just is the love of my life and also not the center of all of my desires, that I wanted to be a smart, capable person and I wanted to go out and do big things with the world and also be with my kid. And there was a big tug of war in my heart, and that I just felt like it needed to be said about how do we do both these things at once. And it just did so well. We then started the Facebook group, we started the podcast, and that was 10 years ago. And we just boss mommed the crap out of everything since.
I mean, truly. And I want to get into some of those more specific elements of what the early days look like, what it grew into, and how you've decided to later reset. But I think I'm going to postpone those questions a couple just to continue like setting the stage and building the momentum to get there. So hearing your story, you've really worn a lot of different hats, but also you've tried a bunch of stuff. And I'm sure there are people out there that are thinking, I mean, I get a lot of DMs of moms saying, I'm getting itchy. Like, we're in the messy middle of life. I'm kind of over this old corporate thing that I've been doing. I'm misaligned from my work. It's not filling my cup up anymore. And a lot of it is, people are feeling torn and misaligned from what they thought they wanted to do or what they've been doing because now they have friction in the system that didn't used to exist before they had kids.
Hmm.
What would you like if you were thinking super tactically about some of the highs and lows of being an entrepreneur or a consultant or being in corporate? Like, what would you rattle off some of the highs and lows in each of those categories, given that you have truly walked in those shoes?
Yeah, yeah. Well, one I did. I just had my birthday recently. I was in Chicago, and my Krista, who's she's my integrator, right? Which so she's not just an operations person. Like she's the other half of me. We joke that as a visionary, and she's the integrator. Like we make a fully formed human being, you know. And she took over my Instagram and got friends and clients and community members to message me and do videos that she posted in my stories and things like that to like show that people loved me, which she knew would make me very uncomfortable. So uh, I did this video on why I started my business, right? Like why. And so there's a couple things I think that are highs about being an entrepreneur. Jokingly, but actually is truly one of my favorite things is I go to the grocery store when nobody's there. I go to happy hour and lunches when nobody's there. I am rarely in traffic unless there is something I have to be at. Like the fact that I live my life in the hours that people aren't all trying to go somewhere not only saves me so much time, but stress. And oh my gosh, like the fact that everybody's trying to figure out what do they do with their kids when they get off at 2:30, that doesn't bother me. They've walked their butts home and I'm sitting here and I just keep doing the things that I'm doing. I mean, mine are a little bit older now, obviously I'd have to pick them up earlier. Um, but that's the like that one thing of timing, flexibility of timing, like you do not realize how amazing that is until you start your own business and realize you get to choose when you go places. And it is liberating because you don't have to go when everybody else is going because everybody's disgruntled. Like nobody wants to be in those places. So the other that's one. Number two is I get to choose who I'm surrounded by. Right. And that has been life changing because in corporate, you don't get to. What do? We end up talking about people. There's a quote. I'm not going to remember who it's by, but I want to say it's by Jung, but I could be wrong. But it's basically saying that people that are at the lower level are or at the first level, they talk about people. People at the secondary level, they talk about places and memories. And then the people at the top level, they talk about ideas, right? And what happens is even the smartest of people, when you're constantly surrounded by a bunch of people that you don't get to choose to be around, but you're forced to be around, we're all pushed down to that bottom level. It's like the hierarchy of needs of the way your brain works, right? Where all we
Yeah.
can do is come home and be like, wow, I would love to talk to you about that idea I had for that cool app or that cool community or that cool book or that cool whatever. But all I can tell you is that Brenda is a jerk, right? That's all I can do, all
Oh,
I can get
yeah.
out because I've been pushed down to this level where I have been forced to imagine your kids at school, right? They come home and they're all mean to each other. And then they're friends the next day and then they're mean to each other. It's like that's what the corporate world is we're all just forced to be surrounded by a bunch of people that really, if we had a choice, we wouldn't be friends with most of them. Not because they're bad people, but because we have different beliefs and different lives and different desires, different level of self-development and care, you know? And empathy and compassion. And so having my own business, I'm like pretty much 90% of the time. There's some instances where you have to deal with certain things, but 90% of the time I am only surrounded by people who lift me up, who challenge me, who are there for me, who understand me, who love me, who like it's amazing. And it has given me more feeling of how valuable that is to have better boundaries with other people, with family or things like that I would have never had the strength to do because I just thought, well, it is what it is, and then you realize you start your own business and you realize, oh no, this is a choice. Like who I'm surrounded by, that's a choice. So that's number two. And then number
Well,
three
it's
is the
also a
money
choice
thing.
on whether or not you like where you work and what you do for work. And that's something that seems to be lost on a lot of people as well. Is that, I mean, some of us have the financial flexibility to either work because we want to or not work if we don't want to. But for the most part, once you are working, whether you choose to work in that job or go to a different job is even a choice. And that's
Yes.
lost on a lot of people. Like, it might take a long time to find something new, But every day
Yeah.
we choose to, to go to our place of employment, or in your case, to invest in your business. That's a choice in itself too. So I just wanted to call a time out there to acknowledge that oftentimes we think that things are being done to us when we forget
Oh,
that
I
we
think that.
actually have agency to say no and not show up and not have that job and look for something else if it doesn't serve us.
Yeah, and I think it's hard because there's the opportunity cost. We see this in having your own business all the time too, which is, oh, I put all this effort into this product or this launch or this team member or this whatever it is or this career. There's an opportunity cost. If I leave now and I move over to this other career, I've lost all this momentum. I've lost all this experience. And that fear is real. That fear is real. It's just like being marriage. I mean, I'm divorced. There's a choice. There's a choice to stay married and try to make it work, a choice to be divorced and not be together. Like those are all choices. And there's an opportunity cost for the effort that you've put in, but there's also the opportunity cost of what you miss out on not pursuing the bigger thing. And there's just the weighing. Like, I think when we talk about guilt from a mom guilt standpoint, my definition is that you don't know that you're making the right choice. We have guilt because we don't feel like we're and having kids and having a business are the biggest places for guilt, right? Because we have no idea if we're screwing our kid up, if they're going to need therapy, or I'm teaching them the best lessons in life. I don't know in my business if all that effort and money and time that launch is going to work, or if it's going to be a total flop. Like, you don't know if that thing you do in corporate that you put all this effort into is going to actually get you that raise or get you into whatever it is that you want. And so guilt is when we feel unsure about our choices. And so I think if we can be intentional about weighing the understanding of what we want it to get us, what we're willing to do, what, like, all of those things, then it helps us go, okay, I'm me telling my kids that I'm not going to hang out with you today because I have this really important thing I'm doing is that's choice, right? And I had to do this the other day, that I was like, hey, I need to be on this call. It's in the evening. We're not going to watch, shows. This is something I want to do. It was actually just a call with a friend that doesn't live like in our, like, it's a very different time zone.
Mhm.
And yeah, and did that. They fell asleep in their own rooms. We didn't really hang out in the evening. And and the next day, that was a conscious choice. This was somebody I don't get to talk to often. I wanted to talk to them. And then the next day I went and I was just sat with both of them individually. And I was like, I really appreciate that you let me do that, right? You could have made it hard on me. You could have been a butthead about it, and you weren't. And you were very gracious. And I was like, and tonight we're going to hang out. We're going to have a really great time. But I want you to know, one, I appreciate how you handled it. Right. I appreciate that you understood that that was a need I had. And if you ever have a need like that, I'd like you to be able to communicate that with me. And then I could feel really good that, yeah, I didn't hang out with my kids that one night. Right. Because this was a time that I wanted to do something else. And I feel really good about how I handled it, how they handled it, how we went through that. And in the past, though, 10 years ago or 5 years ago, whatever it was, I would have felt massively guilty that I didn't hang out with my kids for those few hours. It's like that in business, in your choice. So when you talk about choices, yeah, we got to sit down. We got to surround ourselves with people and tools that help us make, like, feel good about the choices we make. Not necessarily that we know what the outcome is going to be, but that we feel good about the process we took and how we're handling those choices. And that's the key, so that you actually move through life. It doesn't mean you're not going to fail, but it does mean that you feel better about the choices that you make.
Yeah. Oh gosh. First of all, if you haven't read the book Quit by Annie Duke, have you read that? Like
Mm-mm.
the I think you'd really enjoy it. It's almost so Annie Duke is an economist and a world-class poker player that is now
Mm,
at least a three-time author. But her book Quit is something I think every entrepreneur should read, but it's also something I believe every human should read, because it's essentially about making calculated choices to
hmm.
where you know when to hold them, you know when to fold them, essentially.
Yeah.
Highly recommend it. Think you'd love it. But going back, I wrote this down, Dana. The guilt is when we're unsure about our choices.
Hmm.
And that is 120% aligned to everything I believe in and everything I tell my clients. And in fact, that's where we focus much of our time, because I want my clients being at a place where they are making intentional life choices, where
Yeah.
they know that they're taking the phone call with their girlfriend for a reason. and they don't have to feel guilty about that. They get to be present in the moment, but know that that their entire family or their entire ecosystem is aligned with that choice, regardless of the choice is big or small, because
Mhm.
it is the right decision for them. You will be seeing that quote again. I wrote it down. It is, I mean, I'm so glad that you picked up on that. Well, let's pull on that thread a little bit more around you being a single mom, because what I'm gathering, there are a lot of highs and being an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
And there have to be a lot of anxiety points too, since to your point, you really don't know how, like you're taking it, you're making a decision, you're making a calculated bet in yourself, in your business. And
Mhm.
as a single mom, there's probably a lot of pressure riding on that. So talk to me about why you knew that that risk was the right risk for you, and any of those other highs and lows that you've experienced as a single mom that you believe are uniquely and less obvious challenges of single moms.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a couple things I think, and even like what led to being a single mom, right? Because I've gotten two questions, super interesting questions over the years that I love. They crack me. One of them cracks me up. I will get the question, did starting your own business cause your divorce? And I've then also gotten the question of whether starting my own business made me a lesbian, which I freaking love that question. It's the best question. I was like, where does that question even come from? And the girl was like, well, I've seen a lot of women start their own business, they're really successful, and then they get a divorce and then they come out that they like women. And I was like, I love that you've made that as a correlation.
That's so bold.
I love it. And I was like, no, I'm pretty sure I still like guys, but I love that you asked. My more power to everybody who wants to be whatever they want to be. Like, but I just thought it was a funny question. So but I did say that in some ways, yes, starting my own business did cause my divorce, but it didn't cause my divorce because my business caused my divorce. It caused my divorce because you like when you start your own business, you go through a self-development journey that nobody tells you about. Because now I have to be visible. I have to show up online, which means I got to get through a lot of my hangups about showing up without makeup, or what I'm going to look like, about what I'm going to say, what am I going to be known for? Do I even have a voice people want to hear? So you have all these things of like, what's my monetary value? How do I charge? How do I ask people to pay me? Like all of these things. And so you start to go down this journey and you start to self-develop. And if your partner doesn't self-develop with you, then it's not my husband's fault that I turned into somebody that isn't the person he married. Like I became a new version of myself, and while I wished he would have gone along that journey with me, that is not what happened. And when we really looked at who I became and what my new dreams and my new aspirations were, and what his dreams and his aspirations were, they not only just like didn't work, they like massively didn't work, right? Like the way we wanted to spend our time, the way we wanted to be in 10 years, like the way we wanted to live, the way we like those things, like they just were massively different. So if that had not been the case and we had grown together, like a lot of my friends where their husband then goes to events with them and they do that, there's a lot of like love is not looking at each other, it's looking in the same direction. I tell people, you want to start your own business, it is going to be a freaking walkabout. You are going to develop yourself in ways you never thought. You're going to all of a sudden 5 years in start eating holistically and caring about your body and looking at supplements, and like the biohacking is a natural, like every single person that I see in there, like they come to this space where they start to know enough about themselves and care about themselves as an asset and learn that they're reading books, they're doing things. And entrepreneurship is this entryway into learning about yourself. Get your partner to come along with you, because you'll stay married a lot longer if you guys grow in the same direction. They may not do the same exact things as you. They may stay in corporate, they may do whatever, but do things together, because that matters. When we became completely separate people and I did get a divorce, my business was okay, but definitely not like a six-figure business. But I also live in San Diego, and it was actually, that's not true. We made a lot of money. We spent a lot of money, right? So Boss Mom itself was almost $1 million business. My take home, right, was not even remotely that, because I had a husband who was helping me. So I just put money back into it. So all of a sudden I had to go, oh crap, I have to keep more of my money. And that was a massive thing. So I'll tell you, if you're starting a business and you're married and then you end up that you're not married anymore, that's going to be your biggest problem, which is you have a business, it's making money, but you haven't looked at it as your money maker. You've looked at it as it made money and you put it back in. So all of a sudden I had to restructure things. I had to figure things out so that I could be paying myself the amount of money that was necessary to live in San Diego as a single mom and make that work. And that was really challenging. The restructuring that was really challenging over the years, really being a CEO and moving into CEO role and figuring out what I invest in, because for other people, they have less risk to invest money when they have a dual income versus me. Like if I spend a bunch of money in my business and then we don't make a bunch of money for some reason, or summer is usually a lull for us because moms invest less, right? Then all of a sudden I don't make that money. Like there's been times when I haven't been able to pay myself because I had to pay everybody else. And that happens. So it's like understanding when you're a single parent, more of the risk that you take in the way that you grow. So you grow a little more cautiously. But also from a time perspective, like as a single mom, I could get a nanny. I could get all of those things. I just didn't want to, right? Being with my kids during this time. So I really want us to live in a world where working 20 hours a week is considered full time when you're a mom, because the other 20 to 50 hours a week are spent on parenting, cooking, cleaning, being there for my children. Like my kids are 10 and 12. They're starting to look at the world and experience it in a different way. I have to teach them life lessons and mitigate all the crap that they get told by the rest of the world and their friends and things and whatnot. So it's like all of that is the figuring out how you're paying yourself in a different way, looking at money in a different way. And then as a single mom, you have to figure out how to then go and date. And I've had this conversation with someone recently. I was like, when you get in a fight with your husband and you're like, I'm angry, I'm annoyed, like, but we know the kids are okay. They're over here and we're doing these things and you're going to like figure it out. And you have your business and stuff, but it's like, there's a home unit. What happens when you're dating and then your heart is broken by somebody that breaks up with you or does something that makes you feel unloved or unworthy, or you're just trying to figure out if you are lovable and worthy, because after divorce, that totally knocks you down, but it's your day with the kids. There's nobody to hand them off to. And my dad died. I got a divorce. Had like my parent have cancer. I've had like all these different things happen. I've had to learn for my kids to see me sad and like have it be okay. And that's been a massive one because there isn't the same kind of support system as you would have before. So there's a ton that happens when you're a single parent. But I also have married women. I just went through something and I was talking to my Krista, who's married, and she's got 5 kids, 4 that are in the house. And she's like, oh, Dana, I deal with that. Like I'm married, but I still deal with that emotional turmoil or that thing. So it's like, we all still deal with the same stuff. And I have a cushion enough money now from a business perspective that I'm less worried about that risk and those things. But also the third part about the ups about business, which we didn't get to, is I can make money whenever I want. I'm not beholden to a 2% raise. I'm not spending time. I get to choose where I spend my time and how much I charge. I can double my rates whenever I want. I can go over here and do this consulting. I can man up and like make something and sell it over here. I can flash sale this. So it's like I have a lot more flexibility when I need to make sure I pull in cash that is yes, less like more volatile and more risky, but also more opportunity.
Yeah, and that's true. That's true. You are so much more in the driver's seat, in control. And I also just appreciate, Dana, that you're in a place of vulnerability around your kids. I'm assuming and can only imagine that will help cement your relationship with them and endear you to them in a deeper way than just being their mom and more like a figurehead perspective. You'll really become their go-to person to process. And that's huge. I think about our generation. Many of us did not process emotions with our parents. They just did not make themselves available to us in that capacity. And we do not have a deep relationship with our parents like that because that level of vulnerability and transparency into what we're experiencing at any point in time didn't exist. So I appreciate that you're doing that and you're letting your kids see that side of you, because I think it's only going to enrich not just who they become as adults, but the relationship that you build when you're with them.
Yeah. Well, and I don't really introduce people that I date. But if I choose to have somebody in my life, I don't necessarily bring them around a bunch. I don't integrate them into my life. That is a preference that I have that I know is different than a lot of people. I don't, yeah. So it's just, I keep things very separate. So my kids might know about somebody that I care about. And I always teach my kids that you become friends with somebody first and decide that you want to be friends with somebody. Then if you really like each other and you want to kiss, like that's something you can happen, but it should happen as a friendship first. So, but I had a breakup of somebody that I was with for years, a while ago. And I then went out on a date with somebody and that I was excited about. And I said, yeah, I've got a new friend, this name. I'm excited about him. He seems really cool. And so we'll see how it goes. And my son was like, I don't like it. It's like, well, what don't you like? And he's like, well, the so-and-so made you really sad. And I don't like you being sad. So I'm scared that this person will make you sad too. And it was this amazing opportunity because I sat down and I was like, yeah, that totally made me sad because I was in love and then that love didn't work out the way I wanted. And I was like, I would never close myself off to the idea of love again because something didn't work out. I was like, don't ever not take a risk on things because it might hurt, because half the time it's going to hurt, but half the time it's going to be the most glorious thing that ever happened. And those two things might happen with the same person, right? Like odds are. And I was like, so be excited for me. I was like, imagine if, me, one of our, well, at some point, Mimi and Pop Up, which is what we call my parents, they won't be here anymore. And we're all going to be really sad. And I'm not going to come up to you and tell you it's been 3 days, stop being sad. Like you get to mourn the way you mourn, but also you're going to love other things and open up. So it was like this really great opportunity because we had such an open relationship, that he was able to voice his concern with me without feeling shame about it. And I was able to do this teaching lesson for him. That's a really important life lesson in that moment. And yeah, like those things, I think because we are open about it, like, and saying like, yeah, you can see me sad. Like just because I'm sad today doesn't mean I don't love my life. Actually, the episode of Boss Mom that's coming out this week when we're recording this, I talk about all my emotional ups and downs. Like we're in a big growth mode in Boss Mom and separating out Boss Mom as a community and Nurture to Convert as a marketing agency. And I'm a freaking hot mess. It's like half the time I'm the happiest person that has ever existed and everything's the most amazing and I'm super productive. And then half the time I'm getting like heart palpitations and I want to cry and I wonder like what the heck I'm doing and I'm crazy and nobody's going to love me and I should, like crawl in a corner and I'm a terrible mom and like all the catastrophizing that goes with that. But I love my life. Like I've built a life I love, and that there's just going to be like emotional ups and downs based on different things. And it doesn't mean you can't build a life you love, knowing that part of the time it's going to be a hot mess. And sometimes not because it's an actual hot mess, but just because in my mind it's a hot mess.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Looking outside in, that is not what other people see. I always tell the moms here, I mean, anybody that'll listen to me, it's, when somebody asks a question around what's the one parting wisdom or one thing you like to say, I'm like that you're enough. And because we tell our friends, we tell our kids, we tell our parents, we tell our teammates, we tell everybody around us that you're enough. And we better believe that if our friends were showing up like we are, that we be telling them, you're enough, you do enough, you are enough. But we have such a hard time telling that to ourselves. And that's bullshit because we're enough too. We're giving everything we've got. And I guarantee that your kids, your parents, whoever is in your life, Dana, would say the same to you.
Yeah, and I will tell you the difference between millionaire entrepreneurs and those that aren't, is very much centered around doing versus being. 100%. Like when you start hanging out with the girls, I was in Cabo with a mastermind that I'm in, and I'm well, there's about three of us that are the smaller of the businesses versus all the way up to $50 million businesses. And they're mostly where they're the face of it, right? They're like people you would know. And yeah, we're in the hot tub hanging out. They're all just normal people, but they exude being, right? They exude this sense of deserving of everything they have. And they're also massively generous and wonderful humans. And when you hang out with people that aren't at that level, that is the distinctive difference. The distinctive difference is that the people that aren't at that level are trying, right? And it doesn't mean that work and trying are two different things. It doesn't mean you don't have to do things and like make things happen, but it's the trying, it's the proving, right? It's this part where we're trying to prove that we can, prove that we're worthy, prove that we are the doer, prove that if I make your life easier, if I add a bonus to that, if I give you more, if I give you a discount, then it will be worth it, justifying. Man, and you see these women at this level and there is no proving. There just is. And I've had a conversation with them because we were talking about romantic conversation, because there was three of us that are single in that space, and where they were doing this whole exercise about just moving into your feminine, right? Which is a very trendy word right now. But the really interesting part about it is moving into the feminine is to not try and fix people, to not try and solve a problem, to not try and already decide what the outcome is. And then if you don't get that outcome, you try and force that outcome. And I will tell you, after having just been in this mastermind for like 6 months with these women and just soaking up their energy of how they just exist and just know that they deserve to be in that room, we've like doubled our revenue. Just straight up,
Wow.
not because I've really changed much of what I've done, but because I've just gone through this exercise of thinking like that, of really mantraing to myself and recognizing what parts of me do I not feel, and how do I just show up where I'm not trying to fix people, where I'm not trying to solve it, where I'm not trying to overperform or prove anything. And yeah, and it has been this crazy exercise. And because of it, it has just opened up really big opportunities. It has freed up my time. So it's like, what you just said isn't just the key to being like, you should know it because you deserve it. It's actually the key to wealth, I think.
Yeah. Well, congratulations.
Oh,
Also,
thanks.
I always tell women to just like show up with their shoulders back. And I think that in fact, last night I was, having a one-on-one with one of my clients, and I was like, my wish for you more than anything is to show up in a room with your shoulders back. Like you're supposed to be there. Like you have actually earned the seat at the table that everybody else around you has already
Yeah.
seen. The fact that you who I see as incredibly successful is acknowledging that like I was showing up as a small fish, and now like just by swimming in this other circle, I'm showing up as a big fish, and it's actually making and yielding a difference. That's pretty cool. It's really
Well, and I
cool.
will tell you, I'm a hard worker. I'm a hard worker. And there's so many moms out there that are hard workers, whether you're in corporate or not, right? I'm a hard worker. A lot of the success I had in the earlier time was for two reasons. Number one, because I just shoved that freaking peg into whatever hole there was. And the amount of times I was up at 4 a.m. recording a course, doing things, just pushing through, pushing through, pushing through. It was exhausting. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like I made good money and those things, but the amount of times where I like wanted to have a mental breakdown because I was just shouldering all of the weight of those things, it was a lot. That is often how you have to get to your first 6 figures in your own business, though, because we call it there's the movement, momentum, velocity is the way we go. Like the movement is you're moving. You're gotta like
Mhm.
shoulder all of the boulder wherever you're going, and it's flat, maybe even uphill. And then the momentum is when you start getting some of the systems and the confidence from some successes, and the velocity is like, oh, it's picking up speed and the ball is becoming bigger without you even doing anything. That movement part is hard. The second reason is that alignment part that you talked about. There is a desire, like we call it like there's for the woman, the like break that happens in identity for women, but they become a mom. You break into like woman, mother, and voice is what we call it. And like mother is the nurturing, self-sacrificing, loving. The woman is the sensual part of you, and whatever that means, that's very different for each woman, right? But that playfulness, the loving, the carefree, there's a way a woman is that brings this into the world. That's this beautiful thing. And we had this innocent playfulness, and then we had kids, and then it usually dies and comes out every once in a while because we've got logistics and life and making sure people are alive. And then the voice is the part that is that aligned part. The voice is the part that's like, I'm a smart person. I want to say things. I want to do things. I want to impact people's lives. I want somebody to tell me, who isn't somebody that loves me already, that I impact them, and that I change the way they think, or that I made a difference, or that they needed to hear that, or whatever kind of smart you want to be. And so in business, when I started Boss Mom, I say it came from, there's scars and wounds, right? And usually the wound is like an open wound. Like a lot of us start businesses. A lot of times you get a lawyer who quits and becomes a life coach, right? A lot of times when you get somebody who was that they got divorced and then they started this other, this holistic nutrition, is because we have these catalysts in our lives, and then we feel this calling to have our voice heard, to say something. And a lot of times we start businesses that may or may not be lucrative at all, because we're not actually starting a business to make money. We're starting a business to be heard, because we're in our wound. We're in something that we're like, either I had this massive transformation and I need you to see what this transformation is, because if only you knew what I knew, your life could be better in the way that I healed. Right? Michelle Dempsey is one of my friends who got a divorce, went through all this stuff, and now 15 years later, she has a freaking multi-million-dollar divorce coach certification that just helps women become certified in helping women go through divorces and co-parenting, right? Because she had a wound. The wound hurt. She healed the wound. It became a scar. She teaches the scar, right? So that other people that have the wound. As a mom, that was it. It was like, I'm in this wound. I need this community. I need these people. I need help. I had to do these things. And really the stuff that I was good at about the marketing and the sales that we made a lot of the money in, that stuff I knew. There was no wound there. The me needing it to be moms, that was my wound. And Boss Mom and the movement we started and everything we had is not the most lucrative business I could have started. I could have made tens of millions of dollars not going after moms, right? And going after companies. But I didn't, because it was a calling for me. It was an alignment for me, because it was a wound I had. And when that wound became a scar, like I started the community while it was a wound, but what Boss Mom has become and what it's becoming now is because of all the things I've learned. And we're writing the book, Becoming Boss Mom, which is more of a memoir of like these stories and like this trajectory of how this works as motherhood and this identity rift that happens, and the proving and the becoming and all that stuff. Yeah, like it just is, it's a pretty crazy ride. And I wish more moms knew that they think they're starting a business because it would be great to make money. And they're not. They're starting a business because they are yearning to be seen. They're yearning to be heard. They're yearning to teach, right? To show, to be a mentor, to be loved, to guide, to all of those things. And then, because if they did, then they would look and they would go, oh, I'm actually going to start a business that's really never going to make more than a couple grand a month or six figures or whatever that is. And I don't really care to scale it, because that's not what I care about. Right now, they get online and they see all these ads for all these things, and then they feel massively guilty that they're not scaling their business, or they can't seem to get themselves to do all of these things, when what they wanted to do was work 10 hours a week and be with their family, but also bring in a couple grand doing something that makes them feel alive again, so that woman part that their husband gets to love and stay married with is the part that gets to be playful and joyful and excited. And then you get to enjoy the motherhood part, and the self-sacrifice doesn't feel so bad because you actually get to have this voice. And if they understood that flow, I think we'd realize that a lot of times we're not starting businesses. We're seeking reintegration of all the parts of ourselves. And that's why I think life coaching has probably blown up, and therapy.
Yeah. Well, and also, before I take this home with the last question for you, when I think about the way that you've built Boss Mom, Dana, starting with this community, the 75,000 person Facebook community that you did end up deciding to dismantle, it tells me too that for it to have grown to the size it was, not only is community something that you value, but at the end of the day, I always say in the culture space that I spend my day job in, people want to feel seen and heard, as the exact language that you just use, exact language that I use all the time. And that there's, for those of us like myself that have decided to invest in something like this, it's because oftentimes we do feel led to do it, regardless if we want to turn it into like go gangbusters like you did with Boss Mom, or if it's just, the side hustle, or the extra cash for a stay-at-home mom, otherwise stay-at-home mom. I mean, we are being led there in some way, and it's all in the interest of I love the scars and the healing the wound analogy. So that last question for you, Dana, before the lightning round question. So you just turned 44, and aired an episode on your podcast, which I'm going to link here, Boss Mom, on reinventing yourself after 40. So if you were to reflect back to Dana 10 years ago.
Yeah.
What would you have wished that you would have known then?
Oh my goodness. Well, I definitely think all the things about the worthiness, the not that doing more isn't isn't what gets you what you want. Um, I definitely in my 30s, it was like I had to prove that I could be the jack of all trades, that I could be good at all the things. Delegating was terrible for me. All of those kinds of things. So I think what I would have loved in my 30s to understand what I know now in my 40s, I'll say first off from an entrepreneurial standpoint, is that buying spending a ton of money on strategy it's just going to end up in most cases being a waste of money. Like spend your money on coaches and therapists, like life coaches and therapists, right? Because all of my massive growth from my health to my mindset to my happiness to my ability to like move through emotions and be a rational human being and all of those things, because life is hard, man. The older you get, it does not get easier. People that you love get sick. Relationships end that should end, like even friendships and things like that. Like we're all not meant to all just be like in this happy pod for the rest of our lives. You start to recognize movement in these areas is important. um yeah, like none of it came because I spent money on a Facebook ads course. Like it came because had a therapist, and then I did this other kind of thing, and then I did internal family systems, and then I went over here and I had a life coach to talk about this thing, and then I worked with my mastermind and I created out like a whole future self coach on AI and like did all these things. That's where all the big growth happened. And you notice that the revenue and the feelings come with that. So I wish I would have known that earlier, because that whole like decade of me pushing really hard, I probably could have gotten even better results without all the pushing. So I think
Mm,
that would have been
work
nice.
smarter, not harder. Yep.
Yeah, and the other thing I think that I really know now, like you could not shake my belief in this, is that I pick habits I'm going to change, and I pick tiny habits that I'm going to make and change, and I create anchors in order to create big, massive change. So for instance, wanted to lose the baby weight, right? Of like having babies, and wanted to like get my chin felt like it was just one big thing. You want like a chiseled chin. I went in and I was like, okay, I'm just going to do this breathing and this kind of stretching sort of thing, but I'm not going to go to the gym. We had 2-minute, increments of doing this particular kind of breathing exercise. And I'm going to do gua sha, this thing. And I'm just going to do it every single day so that, and then I'm just not going to worry about the outcome. I'm going to go about the rest of my day. I am now fitter. I am skinnier, and I would tell my daughter not skinnier, I'm healthier, right? But I'm a physique that's actually smaller than I was in high school, and not because I'm unhealthy, but because my body functions the way it's supposed to. My asthma's gone away for the most part, unless I'm trying to run upstairs. My allergies have gone away. My face actually looks younger than it did when I was in my 30s. Now, because of those things, I eat healthier. One of the other ones was I was like, I'm just going to shave my legs every morning, which women give me pushback all the time. They're like, that sounds insane. Takes
Laser
me a
hair
couple
removal,
minutes.
Dana.
I know. But all I do is I shave every morning, right? I've got my all girls shave club. So I shave every single morning, and it is an anchor, right? I am so much better put together now on a daily basis, and the way I take care of myself, because it's my one anchor. So when I decide to do something, I decide to change a habit for work or change a habit in my relationships or any of those things. I don't try to do these big sweeping, I'm just going to change everything all at once, that has never worked for anybody in the existence of ever. And I recognize I'm going to change one little habit, and I'm going to stick to that one thing, knowing that time actually makes the biggest results. And I am then capable of doing all of these little tiny things that just don't seem hard anymore. And people look at my routines and they're like, how do you do it? And I'm like, well, I stacked one tiny thing at a time, and now it just all seems normal. And it's made a huge difference. If someone would have told me that in my 30s, I would have told them they're crazy. I've just got to get to the gym for an hour, and I've just got to, cut out all dairy and things. And now I look at myself when I was 30 and I was like, damn it, I could have been so much hotter back in my 30s. But now, and richer,
No,
hotter and richer.
the best was yet to come. But again, this is why I was so intentional about finding the perfect entrepreneur and single mom. And it just happened that I was able to get both with you, because you are so aligned to what I believe in, what I talk about. Like I work with my clients on my program is called the Life Management System. And inside it, I focus on building those healthy habits for them to make sustainable change. It is
Mhm.
it is also the one single thing I truly believe in, and that's what's going to get you sustainable results as opposed to something that you're going to fall back on three months from now. It's kind of like I remember, oh gosh, it's been like 15 years now. I was way too old when I finally started flossing every night. And that's
Oh, we all
disgusting.
were.
Okay, well
We
that makes
all were. 100%.
that makes me feel better. But it's like embarrassing to think about how old I was when I finally started flossing regularly. And now that I do it, now that it's a habit that sticks, I'm like, oh, gross. Like I can't ever imagine not flossing.
Well, and
Um,
it's not even just about that we see it as gross or bad or something. You just don't see it as a big deal.
no,
Like
you
if
don't think
somebody
about it
told me in my
anymore. It's
20s,
just,
like just floss every day, you're like, "Oh my God, who has time for that
yeah.
30 seconds it's going to take me to floss?" Now it just doesn't people look at all the things I do with some of my routines, like my nighttime routine, my morning routine, the way I take care of my skin and my body, and they think it's insane. And I'm like, "It's like 5 minutes."
Yeah,
It's like it's not
exactly.
as much as you think, but yeah, it's like 6 or 7 things, but it's like 5 minutes, to me, it feels non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Like, it feels
Yeah.
obvious, and in my
Right.
20s, I would have been like, "I'm sorry. You want me to wash my sheets how often? What are we
Yeah.
talking about here? That seems like a lot."
Yeah. 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 Yep. Yep. Agreed. Agreed. I actually have not listened to that episode yet. It is saved and downloaded for me to listen to. And I purposely did not because I didn't want to mislead like I didn't want to lead the witness there. But this is so much better of a response than I ever would have imagined anyway. So whoop whoop, high five. Okay,
Oh, thanks.
last questions, the light airing questions. What is your go-to stress busting activity?
Um, Deep breathing. Super, super, super deep box breathing if I'm nowhere to be found. I also have a sound bowl that's solar plex, so it's set to a B. And what it does is what I like about it is when you do the sound bowl, my kids love it.
Mm,
It absorbs all the frequencies in the air in the room, so it like resets the tone. I have those two, and then I've got like a little ice stick that I do right on my vagus nerve. So it kind of depends on what room I'm in as to which of those three happens.
that is a very California answer.
Is it?
Yes, I'm like a
What's the
sound
East Coast
bowl,
answer?
a Vegas nerve. What? What? I'm
You don't
I'm
know Vegas
I'm
nerve?
gonna have
Vegas
to
nerve
look.
is the absolute number one. Actually, there's an episode from a girl on the podcast. We'll have to find you get the link from Boss Mom that is all about calming your nervous system and your vagus nerve right on your neck and putting a cold ice cube there. Or I've got like you can get at any store. It's like the blue, like the knob on the top, and you put it in the fridge. It's kind of filled with liquid. Doing it
Uh-huh.
on your vagus nerve from the top of your ear, and all your lymphatic drainage happens. So like all your allergies, right from the top of the ear down to your clavicle, there's a lot that can happen. It can drain the puffiness from your eyes. It can get rid of allergies. It can calm your nerve. This vagus nerve right here is a very
Okay,
powerful
well, we'll
thing.
be linking that episode for sure. Next one, what's the last book or podcast you really geeked out on?
I will say the rocket fuel, the one where we talks about being a visionary and being an integrator, was life changing for me because I'm a visionary, and it gave me permission to not be the one managing my own employees because I'm a really terrible manager. I'm a great leader, great creating opportunity, great rally the troops, as my dad would say. Um, I do not like managing people. I don't like logistics. I don't like finishing projects even. I like starting things and inspiring and knowing the vision, and finding out that I was a visionary and giving me permission to say I'm still a good CEO if I don't do any of those things. And then Krista, who's in a different role in my company, realizing she was the integrator, has freaking changed our lives. Like not just changed how well the business is run, but it's actually changed how happy we both are and how much money we make.
That's awesome. If you could wave a magic wand, what task would you eliminate forever?
Dishes? Can I say dishes? Can I say feeding my children? Feeding my children.
That
It
is,
is, I don't know why, but getting my children to like nothing of the same thing and don't want to eat at the same time,
mhm.
never want to eat what I want to eat, any of those things. I'd say if someone else could just feed my children, but my children could feel like I care about feeding them, so it didn't like have a negative emotional impact.
No, see,
That
that's
would be
like
great.
that's the guilt thing. You don't need to feel I don't feed my children. I don't. I pay somebody else to do it. It's not my highest and best
I
use.
need to do that.
Yeah, you need to do that. It's not, I
Do
don't
that.
enjoy
Well, I
it,
like cooking. My kids just make me not like cooking. I
but
like
that's
cooking
it.
for
Like
me.
you can like cooking if when a lot more when you don't have to do it every day. And it turns out they have to eat three times
Oh
a
yeah,
day.
no, and they're during the summer, even though their dad works, instead of sending them to camp because they're not at an age where they're like bored by camp, like at that
Uh-huh.
weird in between. So I was like, I work at home, just they'll be here all day, and I am now the first week in summer wondering why the heck I made that
What did they do? Oh, yeah,
offer
what dumb
because they
decision
came
did
and
I
like, well,
make
mom, we're
there?
hungry. Yeah, I'm like, oh my God, I did not think about having to feed you all day.
Yeah. Yesterday I just released a podcast on surviving summer, and the title certainly had something around, my subject line had something around like, mom, I need a snack, when I sent my newsletter out, because it is truly all we will hear all summer.
Well, I think you just solved the problem for me because I hadn't thought about it in summer because in school they don't get home till 2:30, so it's not a big deal. It's like dinner for the most part. But yeah, I should just go and find somebody. I got to figure out where I'd find somebody to come and just make lunches for my kids
Mhm.
for the
Well,
week.
that's, so we have somebody, she comes on, I'm picky, so I tell her what I want her to make, but she makes everything and then it's just pull and play. So it's like I'll have her cut all of the fruits and veggies as an example for snacks and lunches and that sort of thing. And with your kids being 10 and 12, they're old enough to like go in and get the, into the snack drawer, into the, like, make the snack drawer, the fruit and veggie drawer, or whatever it may be, because it's already prepped and ready to go. Like, you can surely
Well, with
find
my son
somebody.
who eats nothing, that's basically like chicken tenders and burgers. And then my daughter, yeah, that's a children. Would someone tell you that when you have two kids or more and then none of them are going to be alike and they're not going to like any of the things? We don't go on road trips and my kids are like, why don't we go on road trips? I'm like, you are the reason we don't go on road trips because the two of you
You
in a
ruined it
car
for me.
are miserable.
You ruined it for me.
Individually, they're my favorite people in the entire world. Together, I question all of my life decisions.
Well, Dana, how can people reach you? And I'm going to make sure I link all of this that you share in the show notes.
Yeah. So if you go to bossmom.com, that we're there. And then the other thing we just came out with is I told you that I put together I was using a future me. I like programmed in a future me into my AI and then was having it coach me. I just had that built as a GPT. So if you go to bossmom.com/future me, you can get for free the GPT. It'll ask you a series of questions and it becomes you 10 years from now. And then it can coach you in life, business, things like that in terms of what you would do. And then if you join Boss Mom Plus, that's like our $67 a year community networking membership sort of thing. It's its own networking app. Um, we have a ton of prompts, like 24 and growing prompts that are exactly what you'd plug in to say, like, how do I make a decision? Should I buy this or this? Should I invest in this? Should I go on this trip? Should I hire this person? Should I, like, I'm spiraling. I'm not sure what to do. And I did this the other day with my AI. I went in and I was like, hey, future me, I am like staring at a blank wall. I cannot figure out why I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do because I'm behind on like 10 things. Walk me through what future me, who's already got this figured out, isn't spiraling, like what she would do to get out of the way. And man, she freaking dialed in a couple of like figuring out the high yield revenue things and like what I could delegate out. And I'm telling you, within an hour, I was like rolling with it. And yeah, it's like an executive coach on crack
Isn't
doing
that
exactly what
wild?
you would do in the future. Yeah, it works really cool. So I'm super excited we built it. So everybody should go grab it.
Yeah, I will for sure be linking that. Thank you for sharing, Dana. Thank you so much for being on. And then Dana talked a little bit ago about the art of delegating too. If you haven't gotten my free guide on how to delegate, most particularly to your husband, if that is of interest to you,
I love it.
that is something that so many people here struggle with. I will link that in the show notes as well. It's workingmomsmovement.com/to-do. But until next time, friends, if nobody's told you lately, you're doing a great job. You've got this, mama.